Hello everyone, hope you can hear me all right, and the music. So we said we'd do a bit of had to play a bit of Shane MacGowan at the start for the day that was in it. Hope you can all appreciate that. My favorite song about whiskey, this one, because you know, Gary, it's one of those incredibly subtle ones, like, you know, where you wouldn't, it's you know, it's a love song, Rain Night in Soho, but it's but if you listen to the lyrics, he's clearly talking about this thing we all on here enjoy the whiskey, like, you know.
It's not an overtly in your face whiskey
it's
song.
Not like the streams of whiskey, his other one, whereas this one's, you know, he's like, sometimes I wake up in the morning, the ginger lady by my bed, covered in a cloak of silence, I hear her talking in my head, you know, said like a true alcoholic. So yeah.
Aye, troubled soul.
So just one more person joining from the waiting room there, and then we'll get going. I'll stop that. So how are you doing, folks? Hope your packs arrived all right, and you didn't mind the musical intrusion at the start. So Gary, we'll get going, I suppose. Thank you for joining us. Evening, Stephen, in the chat there. Thank you, everyone. It's been, we were just discussing before, and it's been about 13 months. I think it was the start of November last year that we last had Glen Scotia on. Now you won a few gold medals in the W Club Members' Choice Awards.
Nice.
So we figured it was high time we got you back on, and you know, because we're always getting new W Club members and new people joining these digital drams. So and this has always been a popular one amongst the W Club. We you know, it's not only a great whiskey, but a whiskey and a great price point as well for a lot of them, which is always a bonus. So for anyone who is joining us for the first time, and I can see a lot of regular names there, but please do get your tasting notes and comments in the chat. We love to hear them. At the end, I'll be giving the 15% discount off. And I suppose I think that's everything from me. Gary, do you want to, for those of you who might not remember you from your last time you were on, do you want to introduce yourself and maybe introduce the running order as well?
Absolutely. Evening all. My name's Gary. I am Global Brand Ambassador for both Glen Scotia and Loch Lomond. I have worked at the Loch Lomond Group for pushing 10 years now. And Glen Scotia will always and forever have a special place in my heart. The whiskey that really kind of got me into whiskey. And has turned me into the booze hound that I am today. So in terms of the 4 whiskies that you have in your pack, the running order for this evening, so we'll start off with standard core double cask. We'll then move on to this year's newest edition of the rum finish double cask. Then 15-year-old, and then on to the icons of Campbelltown, the Mermaid. Beautiful 12-year-old Pale Catardo. And we'll just crack on. So if everybody wants to even pour their double cask into their glass, I appreciate some of you will be well versed in Campbelltown, the lower and Scotia, but I'm always very conscious, especially online tastings, we can get quite a few new folk that maybe don't know it as well. So if you'll allow me, what I'll do, I'm going to go through just a few slides. I think what we'll do is we'll start off with double cask. We'll kind of talk a wee bit about it, and then as you're enjoying it, I'll kind of run through a bit of the history, so that you're not just sitting listening to me prattle on whilst waiting to pour the first whiskey. So if everyone wants to stick double cask in their glass, so this is your new updated label of the good old classic Glen Scotia double cask. So double cask, referencing the fact that it is matured for most of its life in first fill bourbon, and then recasked into first fill PX sherry for around 9 months. So it's a wee bit. It's obviously it's an entry level. We're in around 40 quid there or thereabouts. So it's a wee bit younger. It's obviously why it's kind of down that entry level. But what you've got is that PX cask just brings everything together really nicely. It kind of gives it a bit of complexity that you wouldn't normally associate with a slightly younger whiskey. But let's get a wee nose into it.
Yeah, I think I said this last time you were on, Gary, but I picked up this back about 2017. It was my first ever time visiting Scotland. Little did I know at the time I'd end up living here, and I picked up a bottle of this in a off license in Callendar for about, I think about 34 quid or something at the time, and I brought it back home and I was like, this pound for pound is one of the I think the best value whiskies in like best quality for bang for your buck that there is out there. Like I think it's a tremendous dram.
Yeah, there is in terms of drinkability, and I don't know whether it says more about me than it does about the whiskey, but I will often refer to this dram as whiskey flavoured iron brew, because it's just so easy to drink. It's just so approachable. It's juice. It's basically juice. So on the nose, let's give it a go.
You've given us a big challenge now with tasting notes, because isn't the thing with iron brew that people can't describe the flavour, like
Well, that's also a real nice caveat of calling it whiskey flavoured iron brew. So my nose picks up that sweet sherry character. Excuse me. Like I said, it's like 9 months in first still PX. It's obviously it's going to be there. It's the dominant flavour on the nose, but I do still get a hint of that vanilla coming through from the rest of its time in bourbon as well. Don't know if anybody gets anything else. That's the kind of the two main dominant notes for me. I don't get as much of the kind of what we'd associate with the kind of classic Campbelltown elements on the nose. But let's give it a go in the palate.
Sorry. You've probably said it twice already, Gary, but the length of time it's spent in PX cask?
And up to 9 months. So it can be, again, batch to batch, it'll vary. But it'll probably go between 7 to 9 months, on average. But you'd say more often than not 9. Just to get that, like I said, that real rounded, bring it all together.
Because you get it on the finish, but when you first hit it, you do get those kind of bourbon vanilla notes. Like it doesn't. Definitely.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's It's also should say 46% non-chill filtered is our kind of base level. We kind of creep up. I don't creep up. We just kind of jump up a good wee bit at the end. But yeah, the first 3 whiskies tonight are all 46% non-chill filtered. I'll give this a go.
Very good. And you mentioned the price as well there. This is £41 on the whiskey shop, but it's obviously the discount code you'll get tonight, folks, will mean you get it for £34.85. So if you're looking for something to pick up,
that's a no-brainer for me. Like a genuine no-brainer. I mean, obviously I work for the company, but even if I didn't work for the company, this would be in my cupboard all the time.
No, certainly.
I happily pay for this whiskey frequently.
The W Club was a bit shy tonight with the tasting notes, but yeah, it's an interesting dram. There is I think I said this as well last time I was on, so I'm careful of repeating, or last time we had this tasting, but you do get there's kind of a maritime element to it as well.
Most definitely. I think we'll get more of them as we go up through the kind of range. The changes more so in the rum, but 15 and at number 3 is that real embodiment of all the things that are Campbelltown. The sherry on the double cask does subdue a lot of that. And what I would say is that again, please feel I try it neat, but I'll always encourage folk to try adding a couple of drops of water. Because what water will always do is, whether you've got a cask strength whiskey or you've got whiskey that's got a real dominant flavour, just a very, very small couple of spots of water will either subdue what you get as that main character initially, whether it is the alcohol or in this case the sherry. It'll just kind of subdue that a wee bit and let a lot of the other flavours kind of come to the fore. So yeah, the sherry does kind of come through. There's definitely that kind of salted caramel is where I get the maritime coming through with that loads and loads of that bourbon, a bit of the kind of creme brulee character as well. Good to see some folk.
Yeah, there's some good taste notes coming in there. I mean, I know they got the salted caramel. because we on some of these tastings we discuss kind of tasting notes, and we've been reassured by certain people who know an incredible lot about whiskey, who've come on the tasting like yourself, that you can't really get any actual saline or salty notes within whiskey, but that they as in on a chemical level, but obviously the mouth still picks them up, and it really does on that. It's almost like you could dust it over your chips in some senses. Kirsty says. Chris, is interesting that only a very short time in PX, sherry influence seems much stronger. Get the vanilla and caramel toffee on the nose, says Ian. Refreshing on the nose, sherry, stewed berries, and a touch of vanilla. Stewed berries is a very good shout. James has agreed with you guys on this. Bang for your buck. It's a great dram, and with the discount, it's a bargain. Brilliant.
Much agree. Right, what I will do while you enjoy your double cask, I'm just going to jump on and share my screen so you guys can see this. I'm just going to take you through it. I promise you it's not going to be death by PowerPoint by any stretch. It's just to take you through a few bits and give you a bit of that kind of history of Campbelltown. Can everybody see my screen all right? Is that going full screen? Look, super. Yeah. So in terms of where we are, in terms of the overall locale of Scotland, so you've got the 5 regions on your map on the left here. In Campbelltown, so we're kind of Little Mills just outside of Loch Lomond, just outside of Glasgow. Campbelltown's on that far extreme west coast of Scotland, and we are on a peninsula, so we are surrounded on 3 sides by the sea. And that will obviously play a very, very big part and why we're getting a lot of that salinity. No massive surprise that a lot of the whiskies that do get that kind of salinity and character kind of coming through are all either island whiskies or coastal whiskies. So we're one of them. Campbelltown, obviously for us, nobody else. What you'll find, nobody else really talks about Campbelltown in terms of the big boys, and they don't often include us in their regional maps. And most of the times the reason for that is because they don't own a Campbelltown distillery, so it doesn't benefit them to talk about it. But Campbelltown has played a massive role. I honestly can't overstate the importance Campbelltown has played in getting Scotch to where it is today. One of my favourite things about Campbelltown is it's one of the only regions, probably maybe with the exception of Islay, that still has a very distinct and importantly unique identifiable style of whiskey. Look, I think the rationale or the example I'd give you is to think of Speyside. Other than being a breakfast whiskey or a very, very easy drinking whiskey, it's very difficult to define what Speyside whiskies taste like. Because there are, by definition, there are so many of them, and because there are so many of them, they need to do so many different things to try and compete. But because there are only 3 of us, and the whiskies are still very much made in the way they were back in the day, you've still got that very clear, identifiable profile, and I'll come into a bit more detail of what that is as we go through. So, as I said, Campbelltown played a pivotal role in the history of Scotch. And was actually became known as the Victorian whisky capital of the world. So, as I said, very remote. It takes, even to get to Campbelltown from Glasgow now, to drive takes about 3.5 hours on a good day. 4.5 if you get stuck behind the trucks, the tractors. But you can get a flight from Glasgow for 25 minutes. But very, very, you would still call it remote. And at its peak, only ever had 9,000 people living in this town. But fundamentally, at its peak, in the early 1800s, there were 26 distilleries operating in this town at any one time. That was the absolute max. 26 distilleries. And again, I can't overstate how small this town actually is. They were literally cheek to cheek. The distilleries would be next door to each other, round the corner. And if you didn't work for a distillery, you worked for something to do with the distillery or fishing, one of the two. So there were over 30 distilleries have been and gone in Campbelltown in the time. And the rationale as to why we became so successful was a number of factors that all came together. A lot of kind of good coincidence that just so happened at the right time for us. So the first thing you've got is that whilst it's remote, our location has played a massive part. So being in that far west coast, if I can come back to this one. So being in the far west coast, so you've got the peninsula coming down here, but you've got coming up outside Arran. This then takes you into the Clyde and up to Glasgow. And what that meant, because Campbelltown had a deep sea port, it then meant you had all the ships that are coming from the New World or going off into the New World would either stop in Campbelltown before going to Glasgow, or would go Glasgow, Campbelltown and off. So that meant we would had the transport coming through. So you had the transport of people, transport of goods, but importantly for us, you had the transport of casks. So obviously they were coming from the New World, bringing rums and ports and wine, and we got obviously good first dibs on a lot of that. On the west coast we got a lot of rain, which meant there was lots of lush farmland, ability to grow a lot of barley. There was a loch created for the distillers by the Duke of Argyll, God bless him. So we had a plentiful supply of fresh, clean, soft water. The shipping also did a massive bit for us in terms of a proximity to Glasgow, and it sounds again like a mental thing to say, but back in the early 1800s, to go from Glasgow to one of the Highland distilleries, using horse and cart, or using any of the kind of modes of transport they had through these dirt tracks, was realistically a 3-4 day round trip. But as the maritime vessels developed and became more and more efficient, you got to the stage where you could go from Glasgow to Campbelltown in 3 hours on the water. So the transport. Sorry, you go.
I was going to say, next time I'm stuck in bumper to bumper traffic on the M8 going to Glasgow, I'll just kind of remember that, this could have been a 3 day round trip,
Exactly. Yeah. So and then the shipping, fuel was the last one. Local coal mine. There was a coal mine just outside Campbelltown, so it meant the fuel was cheap and readily available. The tastes of the time also meant that Campbelltown suited the palates. Back in the early 1800s, we weren't drinking single malt as we are now. Everybody was drinking blended Scotch. And back in those days, they were drinking their blends in toddies. And for a toddy, you really wanted a big, robust, flavourful spirit that could really stand up to a toddy. And Campbelltown was that in spades. So the blenders loved the Campbelltown Scotch. And it ultimately meant that for a period of around 100 years, so from those early 1800s to the early 1900s, if you were drinking Scotch, you were drinking Campbelltown Scotch. So that was the real rise and the boom of Campbelltown. No massive surprise that obviously we were at 26. We're no longer at 26. We're unfortunately crashed down to, at one point, only 2 distilleries, and we now are back at 3. Soon to be 6 with the planning permissions approved. But if you're to believe all the rumours, we could be anywhere up to 9 or 10.
That's amazing, because you just predicted my next question, because I was going to say it's amazing with so many new distilleries opening up and the kind of the rebound, the growth in Scotch and the rebound of Irish whiskey. I was surprised more people haven't targeted Campbeltown, because it nearly lost its accreditation as an official region a while back, didn't it?
No. Look, we've been asking the same question for years. Every time you see somebody plan to open another island distillery, you go, right, like where even is the space on this island anymore?
Yeah, or not even space.
Half an hour down.
The thing we hear from all these brands is the accommodation. They open up these big distilleries and their staff have nowhere to live.
It's mental. It's absolutely mental. But you're right. We crashed all the way from 26 distilleries down to 2, and it was our pals over at Springbank, God bless them, that then reopened Glengyle, because the SWA decided that the precedent was 3. So the Lowlands still had 3 distilleries, and decided that was what you needed to still be classified as a region. So our pals reopened Glengyle, and that kind of saved us a region, thankfully. So in terms of that crash, so yes, there was a lot of circumstances that came together to boom us for 100 years. There were unfortunately a set of circumstances that brought on a fairly rapid decline as well. So the first and probably the most significant was the closure of the coal mine. And that sounds like a silly thing, but it was massive. 26 distilleries in a small town means you're not. Nobody's running a kind of real tight ship, tight margins, and as soon as you then need to bring your coal in from somewhere else, you're going to pay more for it, and you're going to need to transport it in as well. So costs went up significantly for a lot of distilleries, and that wiped out a load of them out in the first instance. And again, because a lot of them were quite a small town with a lot of distilleries, because it's a small town, the distilleries themselves had to be quite small. Small distilleries, small stills as well, which we'll circle back to. But you then found some of the bigger distilleries started to consolidate against some of those smaller distilleries. So some of the weird ones disappeared pretty quickly as well. You also then had a change in consumption and consumption habits. The toddy went out of fashion, and the highball became a thing. And obviously for highballs, you want something a bit lighter, maybe a bit sweeter. And that's where Speyside really found its legs and really kind of came to the fore. So whiskey and soda didn't do us any favour back in the time. And then you throw in things like, just casual things like a world war, where the government decides they want all the barley to feed people. Prohibition, one of your major markets, disappears overnight. It was brutal, and the house of cards collapsed down.
Yeah, one of the biggest things you hear about the impact of First World War, because obviously people go on about the kind of a lot of the kind of laws and restrictions and classification around whiskey that we have today are kind of set in that period, and a lot of the things I know, distilleries, I'm sure it was because people who know a lot more about whiskey history than me often look at the correlation between the kind of fall of Campbelltown as a distilling powerhouse and the decline of Irish whiskey, which up until the turn of the century was producing 60-70% of the world's whiskey. It was out selling Scotch 5-1, and it fell down to only 2 distilleries on the entire island by the 1980s.
Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, but the inability from once war breaks out in Europe, the inability to get casks of any sufficient quality to mature whiskey and becomes a huge problem, and it persists for a lot of the interwar period.
Just casually nipping over into war-torn Europe just to get casks becomes less of a good idea for anybody involved in that process.
100%,
yeah, definitely. But as we said, obviously the Campbelltown prevailed. The spirit of the town, pun absolutely intended, was what pulled us through. Like I said, it's things like Springbank reopening Glengyle to maintain our status as a fully fledged region. There were periods where guys, literal teams from Springbank came over to operate Glen Scotia, so that we kind of kept the stills going and kept the doors open. And a lot of what made Glen Scotia what it was back in the day still remains. So you'll see we've got a wonderful cast iron mash tun. That's Victorian. I don't think it's properly 1832, but it's not a million miles off. Our dunnage warehouse is the picture at the very bottom here. Very classic dunnage warehouse of the time. The construction is still of the piece. And a lot of the original features. Kiln room. So the one where you can see the white gable end, kiln room's in the middle, obviously with the pagoda. It's not being used. We buy all our malted barley in, buy it in from the East Coast now. And there's been significant investment since the takeover. Since the company was taken over, we've really spent a lot of money in both distilleries, both Loch Lomond and Glen Scotia, just to really increase the capacity, but a real key bit in terms of maintaining the quality of the spirit. And as you said, look, it culminated in just some amazing awards that have come out for Glen Scotia recently. The 25-year-old been named the best whiskey in the world. Victoriana picking awards up left, right, and centre. It's been phenomenal. It's been absolutely phenomenal, and I think some of our favourite ones are the ones that we are voted for, like the W Club by the consumers. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, the blind taste test ones are wonderful to be recognised by the industry, but for the people that are buying it and drinking it to say, this is top of the tree for us, is a great accolade.
Yeah, I think this could be a good moment to move on to the rum cask, because the rum, if that's all right with you, Gary.
Yeah, of course that's right.
because the rum cask actually won, yeah, as I say, gold medal in the single malt 12 years and under category, chosen by the W Club. So as I'm sure you know, but for anyone who might not on the call, the what we did is we decanted all of the bottles into indistinguishable sample bottles, and people blind tested them and scored them. So it was 100% member driven, chosen. We did series of tastings all over the UK with these whiskies, and then the correlated all the scores afterwards, and your sister brand Loch Lomond won the overall.
Yeah,
beat every single other whiskey out there, from a huge amount of entrants, and obviously, as we say, this one we're going to come on to now, the rum cask finish got a gold medal in the single malt 12 and under, and it was between all the ones in pretty much all the categories. Like, we scored them out of 100, and the point differences between the winners and the ones who got gold medals, and even some of the ones that didn't score, was like 0.51 of a difference. It was all very tight. So wow. It's great. So this is a good segue onto this one.
Definitely. So the expansion of the double cask range was a bit of a no-brainer for us. Like I said, it's the process of double casking is very classic. And the availability, as I said, of casks in Campbelltown gave us that ability to kind of keep the Glen Scotia core flavour, but have a bit of an expansion of those finishes at scale is the key thing for us. Obviously, we've done limited editions, things like the Mermaid or our festival edition is where we've historically done some good fun stuff with different finishes, cask strength, all that kind of bit. We've never had enough of that juice because we use some of the peated stuff, and we use some kind of more unique casks, I suppose. But this was definitely about looking at doing a scalable, repeatable piece. So that's why this is here to stay. You'll be glad to hear. And if I don't know what the plans are for next year, but I'd love to see a third edition. And I know we've talked about it internally, so watch this space. So again, you've got first fill bourbon, initial maturation. And then we're now into an 8-month finish in Guyanese rum. And I call that out very specifically because I think rum finishes can often be very similar to red wine finishes. I think they can be quite polarising. Some of them can be, if I'm being totally honest, quite hit and miss. But I think there is an element of it, a fairly key element to it, where it's all about finding the right type of wine or the right type of rum to pair with your spirit. The differences between the rums, when you actually get down to the crux of it and the actual flavour profile, is massive. It can really make a difference where and how your rum is made to the final spirit, and then therefore the impact that's going to have on your casks. So Michael Henry, myself and a few others had a real good fun day a good long while back, just trying a load of rums and trying to suss out which one we thought would go best with the Glen Scotia spirit. And rum from Guyana, so some molasses rum, is really kind of the key thing for us. So you can immediately get a difference on the nose. Absolutely,
yeah. It's amazing how radically different it is, and the colour as well. It's so lighter.
Yes, what I will say, so you're 46% natural colour on this. Mm-hmm. You'll notice I didn't reference the colour in previous double cask. It does have some caramel in it at the moment. This, for me, is a massive step in terms of that not being the case. At the moment, everything 18 years old and up, and their special editions are all natural colour. So within the core range, the only two that still have colour in them are double cask and 15. And that,
there you go. That would explain the radical change in colour.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I mean, you will, when it moves to natural colour, you will still see a darker colour on the PX, but it won't be as dark as it is at the moment.
We got some great taste notes coming already. I mean, Mel took the words right out of my mouth when they say brown sugar, fruit and vanilla on the nose, plenty of legs. With this, and fruit, vanilla, coconut. There is definitely that kind of, I'm not sure if it's because you planted the seed, Gary, but there's definitely kind of a molasses kind of note in there.
Definitely. You get that melted brown sugar for me that is kind of coming through.
Well, that's it. You said melted brown sugar, and Kirsty said get burnt sugar on the nose. Sweet, exotic fruits. So.
Being a true Glaswegian, I'm not massively up on my specific tropical fruits out with if they're made into sweetie flavours. But there is definitely a kind of tropical fruit salad is the kind of thing I get on the nose. Like I said, I couldn't call out the specific fruits that are there, but there's definitely a tropical feel to it. There's and again, this is a weird note for the nose. There's like a citrus peel on the nose because I get an oily character like that. It's almost as if you've made an old fashioned, you've expressed the orange, and you've lit that, and you get that oily kind of feel in the air. I get that on the nose.
Mm-hmm. No, I can totally see what you mean, and Kirsty in the chat agrees with you as well. So yeah, or well, thanks for saying ditto to the that I get my tropical fruit flavors from the from artificial coloring or flavorings. But yeah, and Jeff has said pineapple. I know definitely get pineapple. Yeah, 100%. I'm actually partial to a bit of pineapple on my porridge in the morning. I know that sounds weird. I wouldn't have it on a pizza, but it's actually quite nice on porridge. So I can.
Well, you're not a monster. Look, come on.
No, exactly. Yeah, I'm not a psychopath. He said good legs, burnt sugar, tropical fruit on the nose, hint of rum. Rab says marmalade getting stewed on the nose. Yeah, but I think good tasting notes so far.
I think the one of the things that really stands out from me, and having done this side by side a few times through the year, the mouthfeel of the two is very different. I don't know again whether I'm just getting more of the oils through the rum finish, which is holding a lot more of the flavour, but it feels lighter on the palate, like literally. Where the PX sherry double cask maybe feels a wee bit heavier.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. I wasn't sure if it was I definitely got that impression, but I wasn't sure if it was the kind of the fresher tasting notes just playing that kind of psychological, or if it was literally
very possible
less oily. But yeah, no, 100% agree with you. So this is £47, but with your W Club discount at the end of this tasting, it's $34.85. So sorry, no, it's not. That was the price for the double cask after discount. It's $39.95. My apologies.
It's still sub 40 quid. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And again, very, very key for us to try and keep it as close as we can to the standard double cask, if you like. We know it is still, so for pure clarity, both of these liquids will average 6 or 7 years old. There'll be a wee bit of liquid slightly older in it, but yeah, you would see the bulk of that liquid's about 6 or 7 years old, and that's, like I said, those double caskings just really help add complexity and layers of flavour. Given a wee bit of time in the glass, I get almost like the 18, I get a kind of slightly, do you know, as fresh pineapple, if once you've kind of peeled it and it's in the fridge, maybe left it that wee bit too long, it's just starting to go that super sweet just before it gets soft and turns. I'm getting that real intense pineapple note as well.
No, that's interesting. I said I have pineapple on my porridge. I've never bought home and chopped up a real pineapple. I get the frozen bags in, just get that in there, stick it on the overnight oats. It's much cheaper and less hassle. But
a bit crunchier, I would imagine, first thing in the morning.
Yeah, but you'd even defrost overnight, like.
Right. Okay.
So you make it the night before, like.
All right, okay. Right. Sorry, so it's getting added to the oats before the overnight bit.
Yeah, so you get your oats, then you add your liquid into the oats to soak them, and then your fruit on top, bit of yogurt, sit it in the fridge. By 8 o'clock the next morning, it's absolute heaven, like.
Nice. Right, we digress slightly. I mean, I'll try.
It's about the extent of my culinary skills. That and a chili. That's about all I can make.
Yeah. I see Jeff's asking in terms of volume that it's still massively in favour of standard double cask, Jeff. When we relaunched the range, so that the company, there are 2 distilleries were taken over in 2014, and the new range was launched not long after 2015 into 2016. And to give you an idea, so when we relaunched Glen Scotia, we relaunched with 3, and it was double cask 15 and Victoriana. So double cask, the key thing for us when the 2 pillars that we built the range on were to represent the Glen Scotia, the Campbelltown and Glen Scotia style throughout, but also to be available year round. What we didn't want to do was create something we could only do for 2-3 months of the year. So it's always been about producing that scale, and I think we're doing batches of this through the year, so it's ongoing. And I think we're going to see how it goes this year. Like I said, if it goes really well this year into next, we will probably look at stepping that up slightly. And if that volume continues, we may need to kind of rein it back a wee bit if and when we do come out with maybe a third double cask expression. So it'll be all about finding that balance between those. But I think core double cask will always, because it's in so many markets worldwide, will always be the kind of key for us.
Yeah, sure. No, that was excellent. Thank you for rescuing the conversation from my tangent, Jeff. Appreciate that.
To be fair, I was the one that kind of put us on that road, so that's fine.
No, not at all. I mean, you were talking about pineapple, but I didn't need to bring my breakfast into this. So, Mela said getting banana peach with spices coming through reminds me of my nana's homemade brandy snaps at Christmas. Yum yum. No, that's excellent. So you mentioned, Gary, that there might be an addition to the double cask range. Do you have any hints as to what the finish might be?
Nope.
No. Okay, fair enough.
No, legitimately, like I said, we will probably give it another 6 months of 2024 before we even properly think about it. Like I said, it's at the stage where as the batches are rolling through and we're getting into more and more markets with rum finish, and we're taking that feedback in, which is obviously, like you guys giving this a gold medal, is wonderful for us, and the appetite seems to be there for it. So yeah, obviously there will be another. I don't know. I would assume another kind of New World finish. Having done sherry rum, I don't know where we go from there.
But like a mezcal, or
no, it would be something like kind of more classic kind of port, or another fortified wine or something like that. I think.
Would port be a New World finish?
Aye, in the relative terms of the 1800s, aye.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah,
I think in the 1800s to Campbelltown, London was the New World. Do you know what I mean? It was.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. So anything out with of these isles, you mean, like, you know? So we could be
exactly. Yes, exactly.
Could be brandy, you know.
Yeah, a cognac. That would be interesting.
A cognac. Well, actually, a Calvados one would be.
Oh, Calvados would be. Yeah, that would be good. So. Again, 46% non-chill filtered, natural colour. It's ticking all of the boxes. But again, and I think much like the previous release where you were getting a lot of that sweetness, obviously it's a different sweetness from the rum. You're getting different fruits coming through, but it is more about that sweet fruit character than it is about the kind of that classic Glen Scotia Campbelltown. And that is where if we move now on to the 15, and if I stick my slides back up again, you guys want to pour that. No, that's going to be my presenting screen, isn't it? That's the wrong one. There we go.
I was advised not to do any jokes via Zoom, Gary, because apparently I'm not even remotely funny. So.
Oh, Jesus.
Just killing that time while you got
that's brutal. Brilliant was what I meant. That's brilliant. So as I alluded to earlier, that Campbelltown is one of the regions that has a very distinctive flavour profile and style, and everything we do is about maintaining that and having that at the heart of what we're producing. And we want to be flying that flag for Campbelltown wherever we go. So in terms of the key characteristics, so you get full-bodied, and I think we've been stepping up to that. I think you'll get a noticeable difference in the body from double cask up to the 15. Oily mouthfeel, and again that comes from as I said, small town meant with lots of distilleries meant small distilleries. Small distilleries had small stills. It meant that they were quite squat, quite low. So you tended to get quite a lot of the heavier notes or the heavier alcohols coming over into the receiver, and that kind of where a lot of that oily character comes from. It's also where the historic Campbelltown funk comes from as well, because you were getting those heavier, oilier, funkier spirits getting captured as well. Sea salt, that ocean spray, that maritime element we mentioned early on. Sweet toffee notes from the predominant use of bourbon, and then a background spice as well. For us, for Glen Scotia, we do a very long fermentation. We average 128.8 hours.
Wow.
So that's where a lot of the fruit character is coming from through Glen Scotia's as well.
That's an incredibly long time.
So it's a monster, and it's an average, because what we'll do is, as we're distilling, we'll be then filling up the washbacks through the week. But sorry, as we're mashing, filling up the washbacks through the week and fermenting, just and letting it go before we then start to then put them through the stills.
And was that a very conscious choice, or was it one of those things that, you know, these fermentation times often just kind of spring up around shift work and hours, and you know?
So both, if I'm being totally honest. So we've made it work through the kind of the shift patterns, but it was a very conscious effort to go long. It was all about bringing that fruit character to life that works really well with those characteristics. Worth noting that of the characteristics there, coming back to that sea salt bit, it's one of the very few questions, I would say, that remain unanswered scientifically in whiskey. It feels like the fun has been taken out of a lot of these things by everybody going, no, here is the definitive answer, it's this. But the sea salt's one that's not been answered yet. My best guess for you would be it's an atmospheric piece. So you've got, obviously, let's say we're surrounded on three sides by the sea. There is invariably, and we've all been to the seaside, you feel that salt in the air, you get it as you're kind of breathing it in. So my best guess is that it's happening through distillation, through that atmospheric character. Because, and this is what all of these island distilleries, or most island distilleries with this kind of saline maritime element, won't tell you, is the vast majority of their spirit is not matured on their island. Mm-hmm. It's matured on the mainland. But we do the same. We don't have the space. We mature as much as we can at Glen Scotia. But from an insurance point of view as well, we bring a good chunk over into the mainland, keep some at Loch Lomond and some at off-site warehouses. So it's not all matured there, but it all has that sea salt character. So it's not from the maturation. It can develop more in the maturation. Some of the single casks that Ian's got in the dunnage are just bags full of salt, and it feels like there's bags of salt in there. But obviously not. So yeah, that's one of the few ones that's still to be answered.
Yeah, well, I agree with what you're saying about the kind of the mystique being peeled back by people who try and distill, no pun intended, it down into the raw science, which obviously it wouldn't have been historically when people were distilling. But it also opens more doors and avenues as to kind of gaps in that knowledge, we focus on terroir nowadays, and I was talking to this chap before COVID who was doing this study on atmospheric changes in atmospheric pressure on whiskey maturation. That could be, if your warehouse is by a lake or, on the foot of a mountain versus by the sea, and it's the actual, the low and high pressure changes in the atmosphere, even if there's no discernible weather change that is making this massive impact on whiskey, and he believed more so than big temperature fluctuations, so it's there's still a lot more to be understood out there,
Oh, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. And to that, so we've got within a racked warehouse, the differences you can get from the position of a warehouse, of where that cask is sat, whether it be up at the top in the rafters of the warehouse, or in the deepest, darkest corner, makes a massive difference to how that spirit matures. Right, is everybody at 15 in the glass?
Yeah, I think so. Kirsty's already got a great tasting note in there. So bourbon influence very strong on this one, and maybe peat rather than apple/grass notes. A nice bit of spice, but definitely not as mellow as the first two. I can't get over how different the nose is from the first two.
Yes. So
yeah,
what you've got predominant. It's essentially a full bourbon maturation, first fill and refill. So again, 46%, same as the last two. But I think even on the nose, I get more of a. It's a very simplistic way of saying it, but I'm more kind of grown up kind of nose. I've often described this as the big brother of the kind of standard double cask. Again, I get that oily on the on the feel, but it's very specifically orange peel on the nose for this one.
There's something on there that I can't quite put my finger on, but it's incredibly familiar. But it's something you get. I think like almost when you're, I was a bartender back in the day, a cocktail bartender, and there's something that I can't quite. I'll find it somewhere, but it's something when you're cleaning down at the end of the night, and there's like this smell in your busy workstation, and it's playing it. This whiskey just brings it back, like it's one of those mad things. But yeah, it's probably just some kind of like as you're saying, like spritzed citrus or something. But it's
yeah. I get a bit in terms of the spice. I get a bit of stem ginger. It's almost ginger snap biscuits with that malty character as well.
Yeah, and I Kirsty's taste notes were so bang on because the grassy notes in there, like the that kind of earthy cut grass. It's kind of comes through on the end. No, it's really interesting. This one is £69, so we are jumping in the price point. With the discount, it's 58.65. So yeah, not bad going for a 15-year-old, especially with. I know I think we were discussing this last time you were on. You had obviously price position differently as every brand has done in the last few years, but with the kind of different economic demands put on them. But for an age statement, 15, this is even at 69. It's not bad. Like these things are creeping so much closer to 100 and over. Like
it's mad. The market's almost starting to. The snake's almost starting to eat itself a wee bit. We've always tried our very best to keep reasonably approachable price points, because fundamentally we want you guys buying this whiskey and drinking it in its simplest form. I don't want this going and sitting on a shelf or getting sent off to auction houses. We're making this for me, I will frequently describe as Campbelltown in a glass. This is the absolute heart and soul of Glen Scotia for me. It's got that wonderful sea salt character. Those vanilla bourbon notes on the palate just sing. There is that spice. It's much more the kind of stem ginger rather than the biscuit on the palate. And I think, I get more of that kind of peachy note kind of coming through on the palate as well. It's just got that fuller body, that real oily mouthfeel. It just coats the mouth, just gorgeous. And again, but it feels a bit stronger, despite it both being 46. But that's what I'm saying. It's that kind of slightly more grown up kind of Campbelltown malt for you. Yeah,
definitely. Can you tell me a bit about, because I mean, I have a question here, but before I move on to that one, I don't mean to keep banging on about the price as if to make you sound cheap or to go on about it. But I mean, I do, as people know who do these talks regularly, I do think whiskey needs to be approachable, like especially for as I say, in 2017 when I first met that double oak, I was I was 25 and kind of like wanting to get into whiskey, but you can't be dropping 120 quid every time you buy a bottle of whiskey, so you need it to be approachable, particularly to consumers who aren't ready to dash out that big bucks. But my actual question is on the 15-year-old packaging. It's the black gift box and everything. It's quite unique, and it stands out on a shelf. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, again, that was a kind of very concerted effort to go with the black. We wanted it to have that stand out. You don't see many dark black packs, and I think it just it felt right for Campbelltown. Do you know what I mean? It's that there's a try to think of a slightly nicer, more positive word than dirtiness about Campbelltown. But it comes from that kind of embodiment of the funk of we're not giving you this wonderful, light, airy breakfast whiskey. I'm giving you something that's got a bit of chewiness to it. I'm giving you something that's got a bit of character. And I think that's what that box says to me.
No, definitely. And it's interesting, we hear a lot of brand pitches work in the industry and people's marketing kind of decks and all that, and people are so much more being like, oh, we need to introduce more light, and this is what consumers want to see. But I mean, when I was getting these packs ready and I was over in our warehouse and discussing with my colleagues, I picked up the bottle and I was like, it just jumps out at you, like it's different, like it's good.
No, definitely. And then obviously we've kind of revamped the packaging over the last kind of 12 to 18 months, and that's been a very concerted bit. What it's done, it's given us more more kind of landscape on here. Previous label was only about 2/3 of that size. So it's allowed us to go much bigger on the Glen Scotia, much bigger on the age statement as well, so that more from that kind of on-trade, on the bar kind of piece. You can see that from a million miles. But again, keeping the colours, matches, keeping that GS and the Campbelltown piece as well. That says.
Yeah, because Jeff has said there in the chat, the pack reminds me of the coal mines of the past, and I think that's a really interesting comment. It also
that's the kind of that's what it's that kind of dirty, kind of old school, but with a modern twist.
Yeah, because it actually reminds me of if you ever see old school bottles of Cadenhead independent bottlings from like the 1980s and 90s, the label is remarkably similar. I haven't been a while since I've seen one of those bottles, but just in my mind's eye, I think even the squareness of the label and the font, it's got a real similarity. But yeah.
One thing to note on this one, I don't know if anybody picked up any kind of drying kind of character on the palate for the 15. There is a very, very, very short Oloroso. I'm not even calling it a finish. I tend to call it a flash. It is anything from 4 to 6 weeks. That's literally it. So it's not. It is more about that drying tannin, those tannins, rather than bringing that kind of florally spicy Oloroso character.
Like it went through an Oloroso phase growing up, like, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, Rabbit said definitely more mature with longer lasting sea salt, toffee, and a touch of spice. So yeah, all excellent taste notes.
Yeah, no, and that's it. That's, like I said, it's everything I look for in a Campbelltown malt. If you put a gun to my head and said I could only drink one whiskey, honestly, that's what I'm picking. As much as double cask started the journey for me, this is where I found home. If that makes sense. Definitely.
100%. Yeah. Definitely.
So we stepped up to the 15. Shall we then go for the newest, the good old Mermaid?
Mermaids, yeah. So
some of you guys and gals may remember the previous seasonal releases that would come out around this time. So we had that infamous first double sherry, within the PTPX second, and then we rounded off a trilogy last year again, and that's now been replaced with this series that we're calling the Icons of Campbelltown, and it's all based off this thing you see here is the Campbelltown cross, Celtic stone cross that sits in the centre of Campbelltown, slap bang in the centre of Campbelltown. It's the old market cross, and it would historically have been used as a meeting place. They would hold markets there. It was literally the centre of the town, and I don't know how well, if at all, you can see on this, but there are Celtic engravings up and down the whole piece. Whether that's just Celtic designs, floral designs, people, and beasts. Ultimately, there are a selection of saints and sinners. And what we have done is we're kicking this. This is the first of a series of 5. We've identified 5 of these saints and sinners, and what we've tried to do is try and theme the liquid or pair the liquid to that icon. So it's literally identifying an image on that cross, and one of the most prominent and one of the most talked about ones is the Mermaid. There have been, as there are in many places, many stories of mermaid sightings. Again, when there's 26 distilleries and enough whiskey going about, I imagine they saw some fairies as well. But
you start hearing those siren songs.
Yeah, correct.
The just on that icons on the cross, I know you say it's a Celtic cross in design, but how old is the actual cross?
They reckon dates back to the early 1300s.
Right. So like a medieval homage to the Celts, or?
Yeah. It actually wasn't originally in Campbelltown. I can't know. It was just outside Campbelltown before, but it was moved to Campbelltown, I think, the early 1500s. And put, like I said, slap bang in the middle, and it's been there ever since. And it is a real icon of Campbelltown, funnily enough.
Interesting. Yeah.
So release number 1, 12 years old, cask strength, non-chill filtered, 54.1%. natural colour. And this one is a Paolo Cartardo sherry finish. It's an 8-month finish of the Paolo Cartardo. I don't know how much everyone knows about sherries and how they are made. But
Paolo Cartardo is my favourite sherry.
No, you've got good taste, very expensive taste. Sherry basically goes off in two branches broadly. You've got the kind of fino into kind of Oloroso, which starts off. You've got the cask of sherry sitting on its side as we do with the whiskey, and for these ones it develops a layer of yeast over the top of that liquid, which is called fleur. So the sherry matures underneath that without any oxygen getting to it, and that's why you get the light, almost not clear, but you get much lighter, kind of fruitier, floral character from those finos and into Oloroso. You then get ones that don't develop the fleur, so they fortify the spirit much stronger, so that layer of yeast doesn't develop, and that oxidizes. So the oxygen gets into it, really changes the character of the sherry. What you've got with a Paolo Cartardo is you've almost got an accidental sherry, because it starts off as a fino with that layer of yeast over the top. But what would happen is that there would sometimes be where elements of that layer of yeast would break or fall away, and therefore some of that the oxygen would get into it and it would start to oxidize. So Paolo Cartardo is very rare because it happened, or it was originally very rare because it happened by accident. As it gained popularity, you then got producers that would actively go in and break the fleur to create that Paolo Cartardo finish. So what you end up with is a sherry that's got some of those wonderful floral Oloroso characters, but you'll also get some of those dry, salty, nutty Amontillado-esque elements as well. So that's the sherry that we have finished this in. Like I said, very rare or rarely seen, much like the old Mermaid. See where we're going for that? Oh. So let me just top mine up from here.
Because you were saying about the floor, because on the sherry, but that's like literally where the name comes from. Because when the floor had broken, they chalk out, mark the barrel, say this one's the floor. The floor is broken on this one, and it's something like broken stick or broken line. Paolo Cartardo actually literally translates into like
Is that it?
Yeah, it's a great sherry. The Kirsty's an orchard fruits, flowers, very drying on the palate. Seaweed, earthy, mint, tobacco on the nose for me, says Mel. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying this one. It's a much more distinctive color as well. This is all natural, I presume, as well.
Yes. Sorry, I don't know. I have just poured that into a glass to add something else in. So I'm going to pour a very, very fresh one from here.
It's almost got like a soft, peachy, pinky hue to it, like in when the light hits it right. Like, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's giving it a real nice colour. So 11 and a quarter years in first fill bourbon. Almost, I would say, I'd go out on a limb and just say, statistically, everything we produce at Glen Scotia goes into bourbon in the first instance. Predominantly first fill. I think it really just helps foster those Campbelltown flavours, works best with our spirit. As you've seen, we do finishing, and it can be through into second maturation of anything up to 2 years. But most of our kind of finishes will be 6 to 9 months. So this one at 54.1. But again, I don't think you get that on the nose. I think every Glen Scotia for me doesn't drink at its ABV. Like I said, the very good reason I call that the very first double cask whiskey flavoured Iron Brew, because it's so easy to drink. It is dangerously easy to drink, but there is not a bristle of alcohol for that on the nose for me.
No, I totally agree. Definitely on the nose. Anyway, what ABV do you cask it at?
It's 63.5 is our casting strength.
So yeah, I mean that's very so 54 after 12 years, not bad. But...
So I get the sea salt on the nose. Ian's just got it as well.
Ian said, sea salt, toffee, woody on the nose. Yeah. Well, I've gone for the old sip, and the dryness of the sherry hit at the back is phenomenal. Like it is almost like I have it's been a bit about, I can't remember the last time I had a good Paractado, at least a year. And then that is that kind of the dryness in the back of the back of the mouth is like, yeah, it's almost like lifted straight from the sherry. It's brilliant.
And if you, what I find with this one is that adding a spot of water, on the palate, I tend to get more of the Oloroso character, more of that fino, and then adding a spot of water flips it, and then I get more of that Amontillado nuttiness.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I haven't added water yet, but I will on your advice. But there is definitely a nuttiness there, 100%.
Definitely.
And yeah, David said bacon, which is a good shout, David. I can see what you mean. There's like, yeah, that crispy meatiness that's kind of on the front, 100%.
I like Mel's mint note, and it's kind of specifically, it's a, I mean, it tells you everything you need to know about me as a BG. Like a mint club biscuit. It's like chocolatey, minty.
Yeah, what were the ones with the circular
Viscounts?
Viscounts, that's the one. Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally I get what you mean. Yeah, no, that's a great tasting note. So this one is, while people are maybe ruminating on it and thinking up some banging tasting notes to put in the chat, this one is £89. So it is a jump up, but as you say, it's cask strength. It's, how limited is this, Reese?
So I think it's limited in that it's only, once it's gone, it's gone. But we've produced enough that we can send it worldwide. So you're maybe talking 20 to 30,000 bottles globally. And obviously just a portion of that going to the UK. So I wouldn't expect this to be about, if you can get this after February time next year, I'd be quite surprised.
The company I used to work for in Ireland, Celtic Whisky, we used to do independent bottlings and a lot of interesting finishes in them. And there was a few kind of Amontillado finish, fino finishes. I can't remember if there was a Paractado one, but it really does bring out, like, particularly Amontillado comes through that nuttiness. Is really interesting. It's definitely got one of those kind of vibes of an off-peak sherry finish. In terms of cask sourcing for this, Gary, because obviously you don't get a lot of Paolo Cortado casks floating about the place naturally because of the just the nature of them. How would that have gone, or would it have been a deliberately seasoned cask, or are they genuine sherry cask? What type of oak would it have been?
Pass. I'll have to pass on that one. Look, I think I would say these days more and more it is just say the sherry seasoned. The days of a true, God, if you think of it, if you were to think of what the vast majority of people would think of as a sherry cask, would be that cask that the sherry's matured in. It's not. 90% of sherry is matured through a Solera system. Yeah. Where those casks can stay in the bodegas for 120 years. Yeah. They do not want to let those casks go. If you get a true bodega cask, then you have struck gold. There was then that period where Scotland has historically been a huge sherry market. 70s and 80s, God, we were going through hours of sherry. Hence why Macallan managed to get so much of that stuff. Not as much now, but yeah, the Scots have always had a palate for it. So there was always loads of sherry coming through. Those sherry, and that was then where those sherry transport casks started coming through. And their regulations again have changed, where sherry could be bottled here. Other than that's any longer the case. So they're not transporting it in the same way. So fundamentally, if you want to go at volume and at scale, you need a sherry seasoned cask. There is now such a business whereby you can rent whiskey. You can rent sherry, believe it or not. Like, where you buy the casks, you can select whatever wood you want, what size you want. You then rent the sherry from the producer, so they'll fill that with the sherry for however long you want it to be in there for. When the cask has reached that point in time, they will then take that sherry out and ship you the cask. They'll then use that sherry to go and make vinegar.
Yeah,
you own none of the sherry. You just get the casks. And that is a magnificent business model.
Yeah, we actually had a very similar conversation on a recent tasting, and I find it fascinating, and it's good that brands and people like these conversations are so open now, because when I first started working in the industries, whiskey brands just didn't want to break that illusion that these were all, genuine sherry casks. It was almost like a taboo thing to bring up. But the I get recently these were traditionally transportation casks was the exception, and not to bring up my old employer again. The sherry casks they used to use in Celtic whiskey were exclusively ex Solero cask sherry casks, but you can't afford to do that if you're a major whiskey producer, because you need to keep
No.
on scale, and these are small independent bottlers. But and that's why even the niche sherries that aren't your Olorosos and PXs and your typical finishers tend to often be ex Solero, because you have in the 1980s, I think there's 2 million casks in Solero rotation in Spain, and then now there's only like 250,000 because the sherry market has shrunk so much.
Mad.
There's upwards of 1.5 million sherry casks that have come out of Solero casks that come out of circulation over the last 30 to 40 years. So they are they are out there, or at least are out there and accessible. And yeah, in terms of what you're saying about the Scotch enjoying sherry, I think Ireland back in I think was it the early 20th century, around 1910, we were the biggest consumers of sherry per head of population in
okay.
Not the biggest, literally biggest consumers, but for the relative to the
per capita,
per capita, exactly.
Yeah.
We got some great tasting notes coming in there. Jeff says big change with a drop of water. Ian says a lot more spices to come through with a drop of water. Mel says sea salt cigar smoke. Cigar smoke's a really, really interesting one. And yes, defo dark chocolate mint biscuit, meaty finish, then getting a flat IPA when you left the tinny too long. I fell asleep. That's an extraordinary tasting note. Love that, Mel. Keep them coming.
I love the specificity. That's it. Well, it's easy for me to say it this time on a Thursday night. But yeah, that dark chocolate with mint, that's a great shout.
Mm-hmm.
And
you can say that having bought it up first, but yeah, that's
there is definitely, and I get that kind of meaty finish. It's a chewy dram. There's a real texture to it in the mouth. Like it's the oiliest of the four by a good way. And again, going in at cask strength is doing that. It's retaining a lot of those spirits. But it changes radically with water. Like I said, and that part of that is that Paolo Catardo, the characteristics of it. But as I said, that water will always change a whiskey. Will change it to different levels. It won't change every whiskey radically. It'll maybe just, like I said, dampen one thing. But by dampening that, you tend to let other flavours come to the fore, and it is more of that kind of. I said personally, I get more of that spicy Oloroso character to start with, and then the nutty. But I think you, as a Paolo Cortado fan, are getting more of that nut initially, and I think who was saying, Ian saying he's getting more of that spice with the water, and I thought that comes through on your own personal palate. What you're attuned to, what you like, will be what your palate will. Your palate is. Because on your tongue, it's a muscle. It can be trained, and if you are eating and drinking the same thing and you're responding to the same flavors a lot of the time, that'll be what your palate will get first. So I would always say you'd never say a tasting note is wrong, and I think the key thing for us for an official tasting point of view, they're always tend to be written by our master distillers, master blenders, who will make and drink whiskey for a living. And I think I always view them as a guide point. That's your waypoint as you're heading through that journey. Whether if you don't get exactly what they say, it's not to say you're doing it wrong. They're telling you that's what they get. It's to give you some points along the way to kind of give you some key ideas.
Yeah, especially if a distillery's spirit has a very distinctive characteristic. If you're tasting that all the time, you're gonna that's almost default, and then everything else becomes a tasting note. But someone who's approaching that for the first time, they might go, not I'm not saying for this specific whiskey, but other, you often get brands on here or whiskeys on here where it's got a really fruity, like pear characteristic, and it's all from the original spirit, and that's through them all. But if you're tasting them all the time, you're not going to pick it up as much. So I know I 100% agree with what you're saying. I suppose it's getting to that point of the night where we ask everyone what their favorite one was in order. So, do you have a personal favorite of the four we tried tonight, Gary?
So, to do the standard cop out bit, there is a time and a place for all four. And I think it legitimately comes down to when you're drinking, why you're drinking, who you're drinking with, all that kind of stuff. But as I said early on, and I'll put the hands up as much, you put a gun to my head and you say I can only pick one to drink for the rest of my life, I'll take Glen Scotia 15 every day of the week. I absolutely love that spirit. It's everything I want from a Campbelltown Scotch. It's everything I kind of want from a whiskey. Like I'm in a real bourbon phase. A bourbon finish. You've got a brilliant balance of the wood character and the spirit character. So Scotia 15 for me, number 3.
Oh, brilliant! No, that's a good shout. I'd probably go for the Mermaid and then the 15 personally. Then the classic double and then the rum. Mainly the Mermaid because it's just different. It's nice to have.
Yes.
Like when I come, like when my friends come over my house, because I drink so much whiskey, especially outside of the house, I tend to have the unique, different, and interesting ones on the shelf, you know. And they were all like, "What's all this mad stuff?" Like, you know. And if I didn't drink whiskey as much as I do, I probably wouldn't. I probably have with a more normal looking shelf with classics. I love the classic sherry casks and the regular ones, but you know, when you're surrounded by it so much, you end up tending to gravitate towards the outliers and the weird ones. But
there's definitely a lot of that look, and I think you more so than me because of the breadth of whiskies that you will have the access to, and it's the unique, it's the weird and wonderful that sticks out. But I suppose for me, there is a bit of the comfort in the Glen Scotia 15 for me. It's exactly what I know. It's exactly what I like. It's that middle line for me that I know I can go back to, and it's going to be the same thing every time.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, there are going to be times where you want something that's going to challenge your palate a wee bit. That you want to be able to pick through and find different things in. Like, I think my wife's bored of me hearing me say the phrase that the Victoriana is a great end of the night whiskey. Because of the layers that are in that, that's a better one to pour a really big glass and spend some time with. I could nose Victoriana for an hour. But where there'll be times when you come in from work on a Friday night and you just want to enjoy a whiskey. I don't want to think about it too much. Double cask, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Kind of idea. And that's where, and again, it's one of the key bits of having a range, is to be able to hit different price points, different flavours, but different kind of consumption points.
100%. To me, the double cask now is something I'd stick in a hip flask if I was going out for a hike or something.
Or to the doctors, or to the
yeah. Oh well, I was thinking more, you know, going for a walk around Aberfoyle or something with the dog. But yeah, doctors, you know, yeah, trip down to pick up some milk. Yeah,
I'm off to the chemist.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. I'm just going to put some petrol in the car.
That one I would probably. I would maybe draw the line at that one. I think.
So Kirsty's gone rum double cask 15-12. Interesting. Dave's gone with the 15, the rum, the. Sorry, I've forgotten what order. What was? So he's actually gone with the Mermaid. He's gone with the 12, the rum, then the 15, and then the double cask. Chris has gone with the 15, the Mermaid, and then the double cask and rum. John's gone 15. It's interesting. I think the Mermaid is edging it at the moment, followed closely by the
quite comfortably. It looks like it.
Yeah, the more I scroll down, it actually is quite comfortable. Yeah, you're right. But probably the Mermaid, followed by the 15, followed by the regular double cask, and then the rum, for my very quick head count, having sank 4 whiskies with you here tonight.
No, definitely. I think it's as you said, you do tend to find it when you taste the 4 like that side by side. It is the unique things that really jump out, and that the Mermaid, there are very, very few Paolo Cotardo finishes about. I say that as I was just out at Drum Busters Festival, and there was another 2 on 2 different stands. But that's one of these things, you tend to see these things go in their cycles. And the Paolo Cotardo seems to be, there's a few of them about at this point in time. But out with that, this was legitimately my first Paolo Cotardo whiskey I'd tried.
But it's quite a unique, like it is. I know you're saying about it being around now, but like it is still fairly niche, like, you know.
Oh no, 100%, and it's like I said, it's why that whole scarcity, lesser seen, like the Mermaid kind of idea. I don't think it will be. I don't think I'll get too shot for telling you the next release is going to be on called the Dragon. I'll let you guys have a think of, like, if I said to you we're trying to make the liquid reflective of the icon. It gives you a few ideas of what you might get coming down the road for that one.
Fireball cask finished. Glen Scotia.
It's just Fireball. Yeah. It's gonna come in a 5-gallon keg.
No, excellent. No, that sounds exciting. Yeah, I suppose lots of places you can go with Dragon the more you think about it. But yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and it should be very, very interesting. It'll be a lot of good fun. And I think that the key thing. So we've gone through, obviously, you get that kind of core bourbon, some various finishes, but you've got a lot of those consistent Glen Scotia Campbelltown characteristics weaving through the four. And as I said to you, when we relaunched the series, that was one of the two main pillars for us, was to be able to have that Campbelltown consistency coming throughout. You obviously get it within various different levels going through the four, but that's again about pulling the different levers and creating the different flavour profiles for everyone.
Yeah, no, and I think people on here will agree it worked well. And I say this is it's a go-to brand for I know a lot of our customers. We did a W Club exclusive single cask bottling of the Glen Scotia last year. I think it was a port cask finish. I should have checked that before I came on tonight, but it sold out like that.
That did not hang about a lot. That did not hang about.
I have a bottle of it here in the room somewhere, and it's a tremendous whiskey. So folks, for the discount for tonight, it's WS16GS. I put it in the chat earlier on. I'll put it in again. WS16 Glen Scotia GS. We'll get you 15% off all the drams we sampled tonight. Gary, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Thank you very much for your time, everyone. I don't know if anyone's got any other questions. If you want to ask Luke about what he's having for dinner, or how he's preparing breakfast for tomorrow.
Yeah, please do.
Now's the time to ask. I'm going to have Cocoa Pops if anybody's interested. The breakfast of champions.
I love cocoa. I had to stop. I had to stop buying Cocoa Pops. This is a few years ago now. But it was
because they stopped putting toys in them. Look, because I mean that was
not going back that far.
At that stage.
that was a personal low. It actually wasn't the stopping of toys. It was the gradual decline in the quality of the toy. Really. What was the cereal brand that had the Simpsons fridge magnets in the back in the day? Anyway, it's because Cocoa Pops are it's like a 3-bowl breakfast. It's like you have
it's chocolate flavored air, basically.
Exactly, and you're about to. I'm like, I'm gonna head out to work now. And you're like, nah, fuck it, no, I'll have another bowl of Cocoa Pops. It's just there's no stopping on the Cocoa Pops, like, you know. So yeah, Mel's gone crunchy nut cornflakes for me. It's a good shout. Ian says very enjoyable tasting. First one I've done, and looking forward to the next one. Thank you, Ian. The next one, guys, went on sale today. I'm sure some of you saw it. So we have a Heaven Hill bourbon tasting. That's quite exciting. See Gary. I'd pass for me. You said you're a bourbon fan, Gary. So the Heaven Hill bourbon tastings next Thursday. Highly recommend picking that one up. It's actually, I know we did a bourbon tasting earlier this year, but it's one that we get a lot of feedback on from people saying, you know, they want to taste some more bourbon on these tastings. So please do pick one of those up. And then we have already on sale as well today is the Talisker on the 14th, which is our last tasting of the year. That one's got an incredible lineup, including Talisker 25, Gary, if you want to pick up a pack. Good drams on there. Another one that's distilled on an island and then matured somewhere in the lowlands. But yeah, it's still a good whiskey, as was Glen Scotia. Listen, folks, thank you for the kind comments coming to the chat, and Gary, thanks again for your time. And I'm sure
that's all, folks.
We'll have you on again. I was saying to your colleagues about after Loch Lomond winning the W Cup Whiskey of the Year, we need to have a Loch Lomond tasting coming up and stuff. So definitely,
let's get it booked in.
Brilliant. Thanks everyone, and as Gary's saying, any questions you have that we might have missed tonight, or pops up if you're watching this on a recording, because this is also recorded, just drop me an email or send an email to the link you got the Zoom link from, and we'll get that answered for you. So thanks again, and have a good evening. We'll see you, folks.
Thanks all.
Bye, Gary. Cheers.